Se on omassa välttämättä dags.
I want to do a quick truck talk for y'all today and talk about anger because it's something that I know a thing or two about. Tell you a quick story. In SEAL training, very early on in first phase of BUDS, they brought our class into a room that had a big projector screen, and they made us sit down and watch footage of Americans having their heads cut off by evil people. And it divided the class. About half the class, it really rattled them. It shook them, man. And they realized that they weren't at a tryout session for a professional sports team, that they had actually entered into a training pipeline that was going to prepare them to be warriors. And they became afraid. Those people that became afraid, they quit that day. Most of them did. We lost a bunch of people that day. The other half of the class, we got angry when we were watching those videos, being shown those videos. The instructors wouldn't let you turn your head away. They forced you to watch them. Guys were freaking puking and moaning and groaning. It was real nasty. And we got angry, right? Here's the big advantage that we had. After experiencing that, again, it divided us. Half got angry, half left and quit. That's good. Those of us who were mad, angry, we had a year-long training pipeline following that specific experience or evolution. And during that year-long training pipeline, we learned how to control that anger. You know how we learned that? Because we were training our mind and our body to an extreme level. If you see things on the news and it makes you angry, well, that can be a good thing. It should tell you you've got a little bit of warrior in you somewhere. We don't all need to be warriors, but it's good that there's a few of us left. But when you pair anger with an untrained mind, it's a recipe for disaster. Here's the reason. No trained warrior will ever act on their anger. They'll never take action in anger, even though many times every fiber of their being wants to do that. They won't do it. If you act upon the impulse of anger, first of all, usually it'll be a losing fight. And second of all, in almost all occasions, acting in anger, you will eventually become the evil person that you hated in the first place. Even if that initial impulse of anger that compelled you to act was for righteous causes in the beginning, you will eventually become the type of person that you had so much hatred for in the first place. Think about that. So, for all of you guys that are feeling angry right now, what do you do with it? Here's what it's used for. When I say control the anger, here's what anger should be used for. It should be used to strengthen your resolve to continue on a good path, to endure. It should be used to strengthen your resolve to hold yourself to the highest standards, to hold your family members to the highest standards, to hold the people that you have been called to lead to the highest standards. For some of you guys, that anger that you might be feeling should be a wake-up call. I've seen a lot of people say, I'm not okay with how angry I am right now. That's because your mind is untrained. You cannot wield it. And you're experiencing an emotion at a whole new level. And you don't know what to do about it. For some of you guys, this anger should be a wake-up call that it's about daggone time that you start taking your responsibility, especially as a man, seriously. That you start taking the responsibility that you have had all along, that you've been neglecting, to train your mind, to train your body, to train your spirit, to become skilled, to be strong, to be courageous. All those things you've been neglecting as you live in this little false reality. And all of a sudden, it all starts to crumble around you, and you realize you're unprepared for anything. You may have a little bit of warrior in you somewhere, but for the most part, you are a weakling. You're impotent. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to say, sometimes a wake-up call is good. Your ability to control your emotions, regardless of circumstance, is what sets you apart as what? As a warrior. Meaning we do not act upon our emotions ever. Use them to strengthen your resolve, or to wake you up. If you got anything out of this, share it with somebody. If you want to support us here at 307 Project, go get you a hat, get you a t-shirt, keep my man Chili in the dungeon. I'll keep these truck talks coming. Enough said.
If we don't see the big picture in which that is happening, we'll never find an answer to it. The more we understand the size of the conspiracy, the more we find the answers to the conspiracy. So that's the roadmap. I've been sent a story, an article this week, which is from 2019, and it's alleged to be, purported to be, a transcript of a conversation between a tech Pentagon whistleblower and a website or representative of a website. Now, because the lady remains anonymous, I can't say if that's true or not. Obviously, how would I know for sure? But what I want to do is highlight, because it's so relevant to current events, some of the things that she says that confirm my own research over decades. And the whole story, you can see the whole article. If you put the headline into a search engine, it will come up. I've tried it. And basically what she's saying, put my glasses on, is that she is a
Man slipper översätta tankarna. Så det är väldigt tyst den här kvällen. Vi bor i skogen, jag och min flickvän. Vi flyttade hit för 7 år sedan och vi ångrar det inte. Och vi kommer från Stockholm. Vi bodde i en förort. Så det var fantastiskt att komma hit. Jag tänkte berätta en historia. Det här hände strax före jul. Jag pratade med 2 äldre damer, väldigt trevliga damer. Och de kände till mig lite grann. Och då frågade de varför jag inte målade under mitt riktiga namn. Varför jag som konstnär använde ett annat namn. Och då berättade jag för dem. Och jag kan berätta det för er också. För er som inte känner till det. Det var så att jag började göra videor för 10 år sedan. Och huvudämnet då var ju massinvandringen för mig. Det var det som fick mig att börja snacka egentligen. Ni kommer säkert ihåg det här, 2016, det var året. Och vi började se konsekvenserna av öppna gränser. Fredrik Reinfeldts och Miljöpartiets politik. För mig var det framförallt våldtäkterna. Det var det första jag började notera. Jag såg att våldtäkterna drog i höjden. Det gjorde mig förbannad. Jag kände att jag måste börja prata om det här. Så det gjorde jag för 10 år sedan. Och som hände då var ganska intressant. Kanske alla de människor som gillade mig då. De gillade min konst, de gillade mig. De kom på mina utställningar. De köpte min konst och så vidare. Och även gallerier som gillade mig då. Jag var ganska het då på den tiden faktiskt. När jag bodde i Stockholm fortfarande. Och innan jag började göra videor. Det där förändrades nästan över en natt.
particular career, a particular relationship, and you're in this space in between your old life, your old patterns, your old programs, and whatever is going to unfold for you. So I wanted to create a video today based off of my direct experience in case it helps someone. So some of you may know based off of my prior postings that I came from kind of like a corporate America background, very traditional. I played that role for a long time, and I also played the role of the woo-woo woman because I was always a mystic ever since I was a little kid. But the corporate America, Krista, she had to go, and that was very clear at one point. And it had been clear many, many years, right? It had been something that there was this deeper knowing, this quiet voice that kept saying, you can't be free unless if you're still tethered to this identity and this role. And I knew that, and I knew that for many, many years, yet I still wanted to stay in that comfort of that program of, making a certain amount of money, having recognition, having validation, and having some sort of stature in the society. And when you say it out loud, it sounds insane. But if you look at the current state of the world, it is insane. So I think that everything that we're seeing in the world is all inverted from what it should be, right? So going back to my story, like many others, I thought that meaning came outside of me. And, I was a young woman in my 20s, my 30s, and I, was just going down this rabbit hole, right? And then sometimes you would feel validation, you would feel awakening, and then you would pivot, and then slowly but surely it was this unfolding of a self-realization that you were already whole, you were already complete, and that I was, just heavily identified with this role and also all roles associated with Krista. And because of that, I was in this sort of prison of Krista. And the biggest one was this corporate job for me because of my childhood that had led me to, seek this validation and to be somebody in the world, which I think that many of us can identify with. And so at one point, as I self-realized that, Krista had made this prison, there was this very innate knowing that if I wanted to live in alignment with my true self, I had to let go of not just a career, but the identity and identities that I had built around Krista's life. And those identities were very heavy. They were full of expectations. They were full of stories about who I should be, what I should be doing, how things should look, a lot of control, and letting go of those identities. And it is still an ongoing process, has been like stepping into this emptiness, right? This doorway to freedom. And what has been coming up for me lately is this idea of slow living, not as an aesthetic, but as a way of living. So in Taoism, there is this principle called Wu Wei, right? Which means this effortless action. And it's not about doing nothing. It's about moving in harmony with life itself, without forcing, without pushing. And it is the opposite of what the programs in society are telling you, right? We're looking at uninstalling all the programs that we've had all of our lives and stepping into a place of complete being, slow living, effortless action. So slow living in the truest sense is Wu Wei. It's about allowing our life to unfold without resistance. It's about when we try to live slowly, our mind resists, right? It wants control. It wants certainty. And when that discomfort arises, the easiest thing to do is to go back to what is familiar. So that is something that I have witnessed in the human being Krista, right? She's let go of a lot of identities, but yet there is always this energetic pull to go back to the familiar. Oh, it's easier to be asleep, right? But it is in that witnessing and not, accepting those invitations into unconsciousness that I have noticed that those invitations, they have slowly been trickling off, and that energetic attachment is not so much as it was, let's say, a few weeks ago, a few months ago, a year ago, right? And I always like to be real with you guys because I want you to know that I feel that pull sometimes. I feel that pull to return to that old pace, that old identity, because it feels safe. But true awakening to your true nature isn't about safety, it's about truth. And the truth often feels uncomfortable, at least at first. And then when you let go and you surrender and you actually walk that pathless path, you realize that that discomfort, it's not a mistake. It is that doorway to freedom that each of us always wanted. It's that invitation to what it truly means to live a life of surrender, not by effort, not by fixing, but total radical allowance. So we also need to remind ourselves that this discomfort is not personal. It is not your discomfort. It is just an energy moving through awareness. And when we kind of shift from that personal mode into impersonal, right, we're able to not escape the discomfort, but in seeing that discomfort as part of the just dance with life, right? So if you feel that pull to go back to sleep, just pause, notice, and remember that awakening isn't about becoming someone new, right? Or getting that validation from anything outside of you, right? It's about remembering what you already are. Awareness is aware of itself. So I hope, my dear friends, that wherever you are in the world, you are safe, you are blessed. And if you've had similar experiences, I would love to hear about them because I think it's really important that people share the truth and what's going on. And as we all speak our truth, we live our truth, and we help each other in this massive awakening that we're going through in this crazy matrix that we live in, it can only have good things come of it. So, namaste.
Well, the current owner of the Washington Post is one of the billionaires who now lives in abject fear of Donald Trump. The owner of the Washington Post is actually the fourth richest person in the world. And like every fourth richest person in the world, he dreams of becoming the richest person in the world, which could happen if Donald Trump decides to support that billionaire's space exploration company, and if Donald Trump helps that billionaire get an edge in the business development of artificial intelligence. And so the fourth richest person in the world no longer allows the Washington Post to count Donald Trump's lies. During the first Trump presidency, the Washington Post counted 30,573 lies that averaged out to 21 lies a day by Donald Trump. And there were days, remember, when Donald Trump didn't speak at all, didn't post anything at all, like when he had COVID. And that means that there were days when Donald Trump told many more lies than 21. Donald Trump told more than 21 lies this morning when he called into CNBC, as we will hear later in this hour.
So I just watched the criminal buffoon give his speech in Davos. Now, I haven't seen any of the coverage of this. I just watched the speech, so I haven't heard any of the commentary or reporting about the speech. But I would imagine that the top line headline coming out of this speech is that Trump said he will not use force to acquire Greenland. Now, I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about this speech first. Anyone who watched that speech and thinks that this deranged lunatic is fit to be president should themselves have their friggin' head examined. I can only imagine what the attendees there in Davos listening to this guy ramble on about whatever nonsense popped into his head, because it was typical. It was like a Trump rally speech. He would read his prepared remarks off the teleprompter, and then he would stop and go off on tangents. Many of the same stupid shit you've heard him talk about many times. This is a serious gathering of world leaders. And they all get up there and they give serious speeches, the kinds of speeches you would expect from world leaders. Then you get this rambling, incoherent buffoon up there doing his, greatest hits shtick from his Trump rallies as if it were just a bunch of Trump cultists in the audience with their stupid red hats. It's an embarrassment. It's an absolute embarrassment. It must have been embarrassing for the people sitting there watching it. I mean, anyway, he began first. You can't help but notice the man's appearance and what he sounds like. He slurs his speech all the time now. He's just constantly slurring. The demented rambling is getting worse and worse. And with respect to the slurring, is he drooling on himself up there? I mean, I don't think he can control the saliva in his mouth anymore. And I don't mean this in a mocking way. Well, I kind of mean it in a mocking way. But it seems to me like, there's got to be some reason for it. People have speculated, including medical professionals lately, that he has had a stroke. Some people think he has had a series of small strokes. I don't know. I'm not making that assertion. But it does not seem like he has the control of his mouth and his speech the way he did even just a few months ago. Something is going on. The slurring is an indication to me of something going on. Anyway, so he's slurring, he's rambling. And, most of that speech, honestly, he went back and forth between topics. Most of the speech, from what I saw, was about Trump bragging about himself, as he is wont to do. Bragging about the economy, which means lying about the economy. Virtually nothing he said, surprise, surprise, during this entire rambling, incoherent speech was actually true. It was almost all lies. And he spent much of the speech lying about his accomplishments at home, what he's done for the American people, what he's done for the economy. He even talked about deportations and illegal immigration and all that stuff. What the hell does that have to do with the point of this conference of the World Economic Forum? It has nothing to do with anything. Anyways, going on about all this stuff, but it seemed to me that the speech, it seems like the primary purpose of the speech from Trump's point of view was to try to convince the American people that he's done a good job. It reminded me of remember, God, I don't even know, a month ago now, maybe? I don't even remember. I really can't. I don't have a good handle on time in the Trump years. Something that was 2 weeks ago seems like it was 6 months ago. Anyway, he did that prime time address from the White House, where he demanded primetime coverage from all the networks, and of course they gave it to him. People thought he was going to announce an invasion of Venezuela or something along those lines. It turns out it was just Trump basically yelling at everybody about what a good job he has done, like scolding people for not thinking he's the greatest president ever. That's what it reminded me of listening to this speech. I mean, the extent to which he was lying about the economy. We have no inflation now. Were you aware of this? There's no inflation anymore. Apparently that's what he would have you believe. It was just the lie after lie after lie about the economy. This is a guy who knows obviously that he is underwater in all the polls. The American people have turned solidly against him. And this was all aimed at them. Primarily, at least that's what I took from it. And he said at one point, he said, the lower his polls get, the more popular he claims to be. And so after bragging about no inflation and now this is the greatest economy ever, we were a dead economy, now we're the hottest economy in the history of the world, no one's ever seen anything like this. He says, and everybody at home, the American people, they're all very happy with him. Of course, every poll says the exact opposite. The poll we got yesterday from YouGov and The Economist has him at the lowest approval rating that poll has ever gauged him at. They have him at 37% approval. Now, there's other polls out there that have him lower than that, but that's the lowest that this particular poll has ever had him at. 71% of adults in the United States said that the country is out of control. He's 27 points underwater on the issue of inflation. 27 points underwater on inflation. And he's going to take the stage and say that there's no inflation anymore. Somebody asked him the other day, I think it was yesterday, asked him if he is in danger of making the same mistake that President Biden made in telling everyone that the economy is great when most people don't feel that the economy is great. He's doing what Biden did, like times 10. I mean, it's just insane. You're 27 points underwater and you're just telling everybody what you're upset about is not well, this is, I guess this is in keeping with his theme. He's telling everybody that affordability is a hoax. You're worried about the price of groceries? It's a hoax. Prices are down. What are you, an idiot? Great. Go into the midterms with that as your economic messaging. Brilliant idea. Anyway, then he goes on to brag about stealing Venezuela's oil. I mean, this guy, he didn't mention the fact that he's stealing their oil, selling it, then taking the money that he gets from selling Venezuela's oil, and he's putting it into an account in Qatar that he controls. Talk about illegal, talk about unconstitutional, talk about a crime. This is a historic crime being committed in front of the whole world. He illegally invaded another country, is stealing their oil, selling it, and hiding it from his own country, hiding it from his own government. The reason he's doing it is because it's outside the control of Congress now. He is setting up his own treasury with money that he's getting from selling the oil that he illegally stole from Venezuela. He didn't brag about that part of it, though. He bragged about Venezuela sort of as a threat, too. He said it in the context of, look at how easily we went in there and deposed Maduro and took control of the country and stole their oil. We can do that to you, was what he was saying. Anyway, so then he gets to Greenland. And he was trashing Denmark. He was talking about how they They fell to Germany in World War II in a matter of hours, and we had to come and save Denmark. We saved them, and America was stupid for ever giving Greenland back. We protected Greenland during World War II, and then we just gave it back to Denmark, and we were stupid. We had stupid presidents. Stupid presidents did that. I never would have given Greenland back to Denmark. And that's how he started talking about the whole topic of Greenland. And he reiterated many, many times that he wants it, and he expects to get it, and that Denmark is not grateful. And he told everybody there, if it wasn't for the United States, he said you would all be speaking German and maybe a little bit of Japanese, is what he said. And people like chuckled at that. There were a couple times during the speech with his stupid little, things that he says to be funny but are not fucking funny. There were chuckles. I'm like, come on, people. Do you really need to chuckle at that? You know it's not fucking funny. Just sit there in silence. What they really should have done, I would have loved to have seen everybody just get up and walk out when he took the stage. Of course, I didn't expect that to happen, but I gotta admit, would have been nice. But to chuckle at his stupid fucking jokes, he's up there talking about demanding that a NATO ally turn over their territory to Trump. And you're going to laugh at his stupid fucking jokes? I don't know. I thought that irritated me. Anyway, he went on and on about it. He said many, many times, he wants it. We deserve it. They're ungrateful. The Danes are ungrateful to the United States, and that they should give it back to us, and that we're going to get it. But then he went on to say, but I'm not going to, people say I'm going to use military force to take Greenland. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And I think that's probably going to be the top line headline. And if it is, if people take from that some sort of guarantee that he's not going to use military force, you're out of your fucking mind. I think what this is in response to is that he's been condemned pretty universally over the last couple of days over the Greenland thing. And I think what's even more important is that the stock market here in the United States tanked yesterday because of all of this. And we know he cares very, very deeply about the performance of the stock market. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is what caused him to come out there and to say that he's not going to take Greenland by force. But I think it would be a mistake to now think that everything's fine, because he's still demanding it. It wasn't, I think we should get it. It would be nice. I'd like to have discussions. No, he was demanding it. He said he wants to have negotiations, but it was, we're getting it. He made that very, very clear. So don't make yourself, don't be lulled into a false sense of security here, because it was really in an offhanded way that he said that he wasn't going to use military force. I didn't find it very convincing. And just because he's saying that today doesn't mean he's not going to go right back to threatening the use of military force tomorrow or next week or a month from now. So I don't think anyone should. I mean, the guy's you can't trust a word this man says. I hope everybody understands that by now. You can't trust anything. And because I know many of these European leaders are, although they've been talking very tough in the last couple days, which is good, which is exactly the kind of language they need to be using. I hope they don't backpedal now. I hope that they're not going to go easy on Trump now because he threw in this offhanded comment. And I'm sure it was intended. I'm sure it was part of the speech, but it wasn't a significant part of the speech. It sounded very offhanded. Just pacify people a little bit. Just, tell the stock market to, everything's good. Go back up so I can brag about the stock market. If he really wanted to be reassuring about it, he would have led with that. That would have been the first thing he said. I want to assure all the leaders here, I have no intention of attacking an ally. I would never do that. I want to assure you that's not a possibility. I'm taking that off. I'd like to have Greenland. I'd like to have discussions about what we might be able to do, but I would never go to war with Denmark to steal their territory. I would never do that. You would lead your speech with something like that, a very definitive statement. He didn't put this throwaway line about not using force into his speech until he was like halfway into it. It was like a half hour before he even mentioned it. He started off bragging about the economy in the United States and all of that crap. So you can't trust a word this man says. Do not give in to him. Do not. I talked about this in my last video. He cannot profit by this. That's the thing these leaders in Europe have to understand. He can't come out of this. He can't be rewarded in any way for having threatened Denmark with military invasion. He cannot get anything out of it. Do not try to buy him off to pacify him by giving him other things, to try to make him happy in order to prevent him from actually trying to seize Greenland by force. If you give him anything, that's just going to encourage him to use threats of force again in the future. This has to be a line in the sand. You cannot deal with him the way you have been dealing with him up to now any longer. Appeasement doesn't work. Flattery doesn't work. Kissing his orange ass does not work. So anyway, I don't know. I'm expecting that's going to be the talk today. Oh, he's taken the use of force off the table. He's not going to go to war with Denmark. I hope that's not what you get from this. What you really need to get from this man is completely and totally unhinged. Remember what those seemingly offhanded remarks about not using Greenland, what the context was. You have to put it in the context of the larger speech. And the speech taken as a whole was batshit crazy. This man's a fucking nut. He is an insane person. All right? This man has no business being president. You cannot trust him. He is an unhinged lunatic, and you need to be dealing with him in that way. And to that extent, I want to, I spend so much of my time cleaning up the lies that get spread around about so much. I've been talking a lot about impeachment and removal and the 25th Amendment because I'm hearing that all the time. I heard it, for the last several days about all this Greenland stuff. It's time for the 25th Amendment. No, it's not. Impeachment. It's time for impeachment and removal. It would be nice if the people advocating for the invocation of the 25th Amendment actually read the thing, which they obviously didn't. And if they tried to, they didn't understand a word they read. Because in order to invoke the 25th Amendment against a president, against his will, all it takes is a majority of the president's cabinet, unless he objects. If he objects, which of course he would, then it goes to Congress. Congress decides. And then you need a 2/3 vote in the House and a 2/3 vote in the Senate. So that's much, much more difficult than impeaching and removing him from office. So can we please stop with the 25th Amendment? Or at least would people read the damn thing? Anyone who's telling you that the 25th Amendment is what we should be pursuing is someone you shouldn't listen to because they're an idiot. And I know there's a lot of members of Congress talking about it too. None of them have read it either, apparently. But another thing I want to shoot down is I hear a lot, and I've heard a lot about it for the last few months, and that is Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution. There's this narrative going around about Article 2, Section 4, that people believe that you can invoke that section of the Constitution and remove Trump and his entire cabinet all at once. Let me read Article 2, Section 4. It's short. the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. This is impeachment. That's what they're talking about here. And this section is not saying that you can remove all these people all at once. This provision of the Constitution is simply telling you who is subject to removal by impeachment. Who can be removed by impeachment for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. That's it. It's just telling you who is subject to this provision. Who is subject to impeachment? The President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States. And by the way, all civil officers of the United States doesn't just include his cabinet. It's also members of the judiciary. Okay? So are you saying that when, because I hear it all the time, people just say, it's time for Article 2, Section 4. They think you can remove all these people all at once. They don't even realize that all civil officers of the United States includes all judges and justices. So you think you're going to remove them all at once? No, you can remove all of these people, but you still have to remove them individually. You have to file individual articles of impeachment against any particular person you want to remove. You can't just say, we invoke Article 2, Section 4, and then get rid of all of them at once. I mean, I guess you could have several people named in, in an article of impeachment, but there'd have to be separate votes on each person, and they'd have to be convicted in the Senate individually. It's like a joint indictment in that regard. You'd still have to impeach people individually in the House and convict them individually in the Senate. This is the thing. People are searching for some magic provision of the Constitution that's going to be the solution to our problem. Because impeachment failed twice. So we can't talk about impeachment anymore because it didn't work. And because it didn't work in the past, I guess it can never work again in the future? Is that the fucking logic here? Or because Republicans control both houses of Congress, so they'll never impeach him. But you think they're going to vote by a 2/3 majority in each house to strip him of his authority via the 25th Amendment? I wish people would think these things through. Okay, so that's why they're going on to the 25th Amendment. They don't want to deal. They have to find something other than impeachment because it didn't work before. So, maybe the 25th Amendment. No, that's harder. And it doesn't even remove him from office. He would still be the president. The vice president would just be acting president for the period of time the president is incapacitated. Because that's all the 25th Amendment does. It's saying that the president is temporarily incapacitated in some way and to some degree where he is not able to discharge the duties of his office. That's it. But he's still president. So they go to the 25th. Then they go, I heard somebody on social media say that Article 2, Section 4, we can remove them all at once. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. If you've heard that one, Article 2, Section 4, no, you cannot. That doesn't let you remove Trump's whole cabinet all at once. That is just telling you who is subject to impeachment. That's it. You still have to go through the impeachment process. A vote in the House, simple majority, and 2/3 in the Senate. But you have to do it individually for each person. So, anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Talk to you.
wishing they would change, wishing they would see the world the way we do, or become the version of themselves that we imagine they could be. And it's totally understandable. We all want connection and cohesion. We all want harmony in our relationships. We all want to feel seen and heard, understood and supported. But the truth is, we're not always on the same page. Everyone is on their own journey in life, moving at their own pace, shaped by their own unique experiences, including difficulties, disappointments, tragedies, and emotional wounds. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do, both for them and for ourselves, is to stop trying to pull them into a place they're not yet ready to be. Loving someone doesn't mean agreeing with everything they say or do. It doesn't mean excusing inconsiderate or harmful behavior. And it definitely doesn't mean abandoning your own needs or lowering your boundaries. But it can mean recognizing that everyone grows at their own rate. It can mean giving someone the space to be where they are in the moment, even if that's not where you wish they were. And when you stop trying to coerce someone into a different version of themselves, something softens. Because when you push people too hard, you can often push them away, or sometimes they might just push back. But if you can learn to love them where they are, there's a little less resistance, less tension, less conflict, and less disappointment. And sometimes loving people where they are simply means accepting that some will walk beside you and some will walk behind. With some, the relationship can be very deep, while others will only meet you at the surface. But all of them are doing the best they can from their own level of awareness and understanding. And that's really the heart of it, to have awareness and to understand that everyone is carrying some burden, that everyone is struggling with something you may not even see, that all of us make mistakes in life, and that all of us have something more to learn. Because when you understand that, it becomes a little easier to have patience and compassion. Not because they've done something to deserve it, but simply because they're human, just like you. But remember, loving people where they are also means loving yourself where you are. It means taking care of yourself and honoring your needs. It means setting boundaries when necessary. It means holding people accountable when they hurt you. It means saying no to things that don't align with your well-being. Acceptance doesn't mean tolerance. You can accept someone for who they are and still choose distance over closeness. And you can offer compassion without compromising who you are. But we can also recognize when we might be demanding too much of others, when we might be pushing them a little too hard, when we might be a bit too critical or inconsiderate, argumentative or unforgiving. And maybe we can learn to soften and to open our hearts a little more and to let them in and to love them anyway, without needing them to be different, but just loving them where they are. If you find value in this content,
You know, I remember one of my first real jobs. I worked for an ice company here in Kentucky. That's where I live. And it was freezing cold. It was long, hard days. And I was by far the youngest guy at that job. And the older guys, they never really read me right. I felt like I didn't fit in. And it was always like they were waiting for me to mess up so they could call me out on it. And it was like they wanted me to fail. And I worked really hard at that job. I tried my very best. But no matter what I did, it never felt like it was enough. And I remember thinking to myself back then, is this really what my working life is going to be like? Even back then, I remember what I was getting paid completely didn't match the cost of living. But I'm going to talk about how that applies today even more here in a minute. But the sad part was that job was not the exception in my life. It was actually the beginning of a pattern that I kept seeing again and again at every job I had throughout my life. And I think that today you hear people saying, people don't want to work anymore, and young people today, they don't want to work. And on the surface, I think it does look like that. You don't really see as many kids mowing yards or delivering papers or doing chores and stuff like that. But at the same time, when you do go out and eat or when you get your oil changed, a lot of the people working there are young. They may not seem super enthused about it, but they are working. So I don't really think the issue is that people have suddenly become lazy. I think there's something deeper that's going on. And after that ice company job, I worked at a lot of places. I worked at a grocery store, and I was stocking shelves, and that was back-breaking work, barely any pay. I worked at fitness centers, front desk. I cleaned the place. I did some personal training, and I was a lifeguard. And I had some good lifeguarding jobs, but they're seasonal, so you're out of there in no time. And I had a lot of different jobs, but they had the same feeling. There was always something holding me back from getting a good job. And almost all of these jobs kept me right under full-time hours so that I didn't get any benefits. And no matter where I went, it always felt like the same thing. I was not respected. There was no real future in the job. There was no sense of building towards anything. And I was feeling like I was a low-status cog in the wheel, really. And a long time ago, back in the past, I think things were different. I think people could find jobs that they felt like they could work at for maybe the rest of their life and progress in it. But I think that's mostly gone now. And here's the big point about what I'm saying about all this. It's that as humans, we need hope in what we're doing. We need to feel like we matter. And we need to feel like we're part of something, like our effort is leading somewhere. And without that, it's just hard to care. Even if you believe in hard work, and I believe in hard work, I just want people's hard work to actually work for them. And another thing is I can't tell you how many times that the only feedback I ever got from bosses on a job was what I was doing wrong. It was never what I was doing right. And that wears you down over time. And a lot of these places, you could just tell, they didn't care about me as a person. They just wanted the most work that they could get out of me for the least amount of pay and benefits that they could give me. And I get it. It's a business. You got to make a profit, all that stuff. I understand. But I do think that the more big corporations have gotten involved in everything, the worse the jobs have become. So the bigger the company, the smaller the employee feels as a part of that. And the smaller businesses, the ones that actually might have been better to work for, all those are slowly disappearing. So you see all the time, boarded up gas stations and other places on the side of the road. So for a lot of people, there's nowhere left to work except for these massive systems. And from what I've seen and heard, very few of these jobs for these big places offer any kind of real security anymore. So they're not offering a pension, no long-term benefits or any sense of that loyalty would mean anything to that company. Actually, don't even think they're giving a 1-year membership to the Jelly of the Month Club anymore. But that brings me to what I think is the biggest issue. And that's that the wages people earn today are not keeping up with the cost of necessities. So when I say necessities, I mean rent and food and bills and health care. When you add all that up, that is a huge chunk of your paycheck that's already gone. And that's even before you start living. And right now, income and cost of living are completely out of balance. And if you don't think that's the case, just do the math. For most of us out there, it's just not adding up. And even if you do barely manage to cover these necessities, there's nothing left to save. There's nothing left for your future. And there's definitely not enough left for a house. There's not enough left for the kind of stability, I guess, that motivates people to give their best effort. And that used to be called the American dream. And for a lot of the younger people today, that just feels completely out of reach. So when people talk about bad service these days, I don't really think it's because of laziness per se. I think a lot of people have stopped believing that their effort is ever going to lead to a better life. And that changes how you show up at work. It changes how you do your job. And it does that even if you don't want it to. When I think back, I remember one job that I had that was actually good. And it's strange because the reason wasn't the pay, it wasn't the company, it was actually the boss. He treated me like a human. He treated others like humans. He wanted you to succeed. And when he passed away, and it was sudden, and actually hurt me, the job changed almost overnight. And the guy who took over for him made that job miserable. And it taught me something really important, though, that a good job really has less to do with the work. It has more to do with the people leading the organization. And so today, what I'm saying is it feels like there are a lot fewer good leaders who actually want others to succeed and to grow. And if you're an introvert, this can be even worse because some of us as introverts, we work best a little bit differently. But a lot of bosses out there, they will not allow you to work differently. They want control. And they don't just want control over what you do, but actually they want control over how you do it. And they want you to do it that way, even if it doesn't fit your strengths. Because again, they really don't see you as a person. They see you as a role. Like I said, they see you as a cog in the wheel. And then there's technology. Now, I talked about this last video, so I'm not going to go into it too deep here. But many of the jobs that used to give entry-level people a foothold or a start, they're disappearing. Self-checkouts are one example. Every time I go to the store, I get reminded of that. But at the same time, I'm not playing the blame game here because I'm part of it too. I actually used a self-checkout yesterday, so I'm not blaming anybody. But it's just a reality that we're all navigating right now. And it's really been building up for a long, long time. But I do want to say one thing here. Right now, it really feels like we're at a tipping point. We are at a particularly tough time right now. This is a complicated subject, that's for sure. So I genuinely would love to hear your experience in the comments down below. What have you seen out there? What has work felt like to you? Because I don't think the solution here is anger or hopelessness. I think it really starts with all of us caring more about each other again. And we just need to notice what's happening out there. And then we need to support each other through it. And all of us need to try and help wherever it is that we can. I think making life a little bit more human as we move forward together is really a big part of the answer. But anyway, I really appreciate you guys. I love you. And thanks for
been looking forward to making for a long time. Because this is the video where I tell you I have kicked tobacco. And I'm going to show you how I did it. It hasn't been that difficult. And hopefully some of you can be freed from the expensive habit of cigarettes or chewing tobacco. Yeah, I wanted to be sure I didn't need it anymore before I made this video. Now, as you guys know, the last couple of years I've just been going crazy, man. I lost over 100 pounds. I quit drinking, and now I quit snuff. Now, I was a smoker for 35 plus years. 2 packs a day. I smoked from the time I was 13 years old till 2012. March 4th is when I quit, of 2012. Forgive me if I talk a little lispy. I'm still getting used to my new choppers. So it's just weird. Okay, so I talk a little different than usual. So one thing I wanted to make sure that I was going to do before I invested $15,000 in my mouth was get rid of the habit of dipping snuff. Now, I started snuff when I quit smoking. It was the only way at the time I could actually say I can go to this and not have the nicotine withdrawals. I know if I go to snuff, I quit smoking, which I did. I didn't have to smoke anymore. I was still getting the nicotine that I needed, if not more. Because a pinch of snuff, there's a lot of nicotine in that. So, I had tried this, going to snuff in 2007. And I actually quit smoking for a year by going to snuff. And I knew it worked. And then some reason or another, I went back to smoking and continued to smoke until 2012. I was driving down the road, the highway, 65 miles an hour to work, and I started coughing. And I coughed so hard, I blacked out and found myself over on the shoulder, almost hitting a concrete wall. It was momentary, but enough to get me to black out for a minute, and it scared the hell out of me. I threw them cigarettes out the window, went and got a can of snuff, and up until 2 months ago, I did snuff every day. My lungs cleared up. I got perfect x-ray. My lungs are normal. So going to snuff saved my lungs, I think. If I would have continued smoking, it probably wouldn't have been good for my lungs. They were angry. I remember getting an x-ray in Denver in 2000, and the doctor said, "Your lungs are pissed."
Kristus frid mina älskade. Nu är vi här i Hovsjö centrum. Halleluja. Och vi ska fortsätta och förkunna om vår levande Gud och Herre. Om det namnet som är över alla andra namn. Och i namnet Jesus Kristus bara finns det frälsning, helande, upprättelse, nåd och en mäktig, obeskrivlig inre trygghet som bara Herren kan ge. Och må hans goda vilja ske idag. Amen.
Jesus är Herren. Jag har ingen aning, min vän, vad är det för lära de har lärt dig? Du kan ha kanske en speciell riktning som du följer och en lära. Och du går efter denna spåret som en annan har lagt framför dig. Eller du kanske följer den bara för att andra säger till dig att du ska följa den. Men egentligen inuti dig du följer inte det. Utan du följer annat. Det jag pratar om, vad lever du för? Vad är motivet med ditt liv? Vad är motivet och vad är anledningen egentligen bakom saker och ting som du gör? Saker och ting som du vill åstadkomma. Vad är meningen med det? Och vad är det du har valt i ditt liv? Det finns olika saker vi kan välja. Ibland man väljer en sak och man tänker att det här kommer vara bra för mig. Sen ångrar man sig längre framåt. Men det beror på vad du väljer. Ibland man väljer fel partner. Och det kan det göra riktigt ont. Och det är inte bara att man väljer en fel partner. Du börjar bli förälskad i synden. För du hänger efter vad dina ögon ser och vad du kan känna här och där. Och sen saker och ting som du väljer i ditt liv, den är inte grundad på Kristus. Hur ska du veta vad är Guds vilja om inte du tar emot Gud i ditt liv? Om inte du ropar efter Herren Jesus Kristus och ber honom att förlåta dig och frälsa dig. Hur ska du veta det som är från Gud och det som inte är från Gud? Hur ska du kunna veta vad eller vilket? Hur? För flesta av er kan jag säga att ni har, flesta av er, kanske inte alla, har ropat och bett till Gud. Men har ni verkligen bett att Gud ska komma och ta över era liv? Eller har ni bett, Herre hjälp mig med mina studier? Herre hjälp mig med det här. Herre övertyg min mamma att hon ska köpa den här jackan som jag vill ha. Eller ett och annat och så vidare. Hänger ni med? För vad är det för val du har gjort i ditt liv? Tänk efter, för du kanske tänker jag behöver inte tänka på det här just nu för att jag är ung. Vissa tänker så här, men jag är ung, jag behöver inte tänka på det så mycket just nu. Men hur vet du att du inte kommer att dö när du är ung? För att när döden kommer, det har inte med ålder att göra. En människa kan dö som bebis, som ett litet barn, som en ungdom, lite äldre och så vidare, som en gammal. Vi vet inte hur och var och när vi kommer att dö. Så det här beslutet kommer att avgöra egentligen om du vill ha en relation med Gud och leva i enlighet med Guds vilja. Och om du vill verkligen vara frälst, ha frid och kärlek och nåd och upprättelse och helande. Och det viktigaste av detta, att när du blir försonad med Gud, du får syndernas förlåtelse. Det där är jätteviktigt. Ibland när man har en relation med en person, säg att det är en relation med mamma och pappa eller dina syskon och hit och dit. När det blir problem, på grund av att du älskar dem, du gör allting för att du ska bli försonad med dem. Och även när det är en annan som har gjort fel mot dig, du går själv och säger, ja men det är lugnt, liksom, förlåt mig, eller hit och dit. Även när inte du själv har gjort det. Varför? För du vill hålla den här relationen. Du vill inte att det ska bli trasigt. Du vill inte att det ska ske en separation. Men låt mig bara säga till dig, vad är det som är viktigare än relationen med Gud själv? För tänk efter, oavsett vilka kontakter, vilka vänner du har, vad du äger eller inte, eller vad du kan åstadkomma på egen hand, och vilket mål du sätter i ditt liv och vad du vill sträcka dig, en dag du kommer att dö och du ligger i en kista. Så vad ska din ande och din själ ta vägen då? Min vän, vad är det ni lever efter? Var och en av er. Tänk efter, det du lever för, det är det som kommer att avgöra vad du hamnar efter döden till och med, och hur ditt liv kommer att se ut. Vissa av er, de hänger efter sina vänner. Kan din vän ge dig kärlek som inte har en gräns? Kan din vän förlåta dina synder som du har syndat emot Gud? Det kan du glömma. Kan din vän lova dig plats i himmelen? Kan din familj göra det? Kan din släkt göra det? Absolut inte. Kan någon religion göra det? Det kan du glömma. Det finns bara en som sa, jag är vägen, sanningen och livet. Ingen kommer till Fadern utom genom mig. Det står inte att byggnaden är sanningen och vägen och livet. Det står inte att känslorna är vägen, sanningen och livet. Det står inte att någon annan är sanningen och vägen och livet förutom en, och hans namn är Jesus Kristus. Och Jesus är den enda som sa, kom till mig, ni som tyngda av börda och sliter, och jag ska ge er vila. Så vad söker du vila ifrån? Tror du att dina vänner kan ge dig vila, eller din familj, eller en och andra, eller pengarna? Du kan skaffa dig hur mycket du vill. Pengar, alltså det kan du göra. Men du kommer aldrig kunna köpa frid, glädje, eller kärlek, eller förlåtelse för huvudtaget. Det kan du inte göra. Tvärtom, du kommer bli mer slav. För du är redan slav på grund av synden. Så går du ännu in djupare i en, vad? En ny slaveri. Det är som en person som snusar. Han tänker lösningen att jag börjar röka, så fastnar han på rökning. Inte bara snus. Det är som en person som dricker någon slags alkohol, så börjar man dricka en annan sorts alkohol. En person som tar en drog, han börjar med en annan drog och så vidare. Det där hela den har med slaveriet att göra. Det har med vad med slaveriet att göra. Jag pratar inte om att du ska tvinga dig själv till en livsstil. Jag pratar inte om att du ska vara en religiös som bara rabblar massa ord och sitter och räknar böner här och där och gör massa grejer hit och dit. Och du ska bara försöka bevisa för en och andra om att du är troende och du är god och snäll och fin. Det är inte det där är häckleri. Hela det där det har med falskhet att göra och högmod och personen är uppblåst. Jag pratar om att du ska välja det du på riktigt vill. Det är inte vad de andra ska lägga på dig. Kristus kommer inte in i mitt liv eller i ditt liv om inte du kallar på honom. Kristus frälser inte dig om inte du säger till honom, fräls mig. Kristus inte befriar dig om inte du säger till honom, befria mig. Kristus inte leder dig om inte du säger till honom, led mig. Kristus kommer inte in i ditt hjärta om inte du säger till honom, Herre kom in i mitt hjärta. Kristus kommer aldrig förlåta dig om inte du säger personligen till honom, Herre förlåt mig för alla mina synder. Det där kommer aldrig ske. Det kommer aldrig vad? Ske. Varför då? För att Kristus, han tvingar inte oss. Kristus vad? Tvingar inte oss att välja. Eftersom att Jesus Kristus älskade ju mig, han låter varje människa välja. Hur många av er som inte har sagt till Herren, hjälp mig med mitt jobb. Men du säger inte till honom, kom in i mitt hjärta och lös mig från min synd och skam. Jag vill följa dig. Vad är det du ber för egentligen? Och vad är det du sträcker dig efter? Och vad är det för motiv och mål som du har i ditt liv? Tänk efter, min vän. För att Herren Jesus sa själv i Bibeln, inte alla som säger till mig, Herre, Herre, kommer in i himmelriket. Hur många människor som inte säger till Herren Jesus, Herre, min Herre och frälsare och min Gud. Men det är inte det du rabblar genom din mun som kan rädda dig. Utan det som gör Guds vilja. Gör du Guds vilja? Följer du Herren Jesus Kristus på riktigt? Läser du hans ord? Bär du på en andlig frukt i ditt liv? Eller är du dränkt i dig själv och dina känslor och dina tankar och din självcentrering? Och du sitter med din mun, du säger, jag tackar dig Herre för din kärlek och frid och glädje och din nåd. Och du lovprisar Herren. Men frågan är, den här lovpris betyder ingenting för Gud om inte du lyder Herren Jesus Kristus. För det står i skriften, olydnad är som trolldomssynd. Vad för något? Olydnad, det är som att några som håller på med häx, med okulta. Så det står, behagar Gud offer mer lydnad? Absolut inte. Vad hjälper det när du går till en kyrka och du säger, jag är frälst och jag älskar Herren och jag läser Bibeln och jag är döpt. Jag säger till dig, du som gör det här, inte till alla, för alla gör inte så. Alla kristna gör inte så, men det finns många som gör så. Och sen samtidigt du lovprisar Herren hemma eller i kyrkan eller allting sådär. Men samtidigt du är olydig. Samtidigt vad? Du är olydig. Och du vet att du är olydig. Och istället för att du ska vända om från dina synder, du säger, men det var faktiskt jobbigt. Jag kände så och jag tänkte så. Jaha, så du följer dina tankar och känslor, inte den heliga ande och Guds ord. Så du låter dina känslor och dina tankar härska över ditt liv och över dig mer än Guds ord och Guds ande. Vet du att Guds ord och Guds ande, det är det som har skapat allt? Allt det som är skapat kom till genom kraft av Guds ord. Det som inte var till, som är till. Guds ande svävade, står det. Och Gud sa det, låt det bli ljus. Så vad vandrar du i? I kraft av den heliga ande och Guds ord som är verksam i ditt liv. Och formar dig och befriar dig och helar dig och ger dig kraft som inte har någon gräns. Till att kunna göra det möjligt som är omöjligt. Vad är det? Att göra Guds vilja. För det är omöjligt att du på din egen hand kan följa Herren Jesus och göra Guds vilja. Det är omöjligt. Men när blir det möjligt? Det är när du släpper dig till honom. När du bekänner dina synder och din svaghet och låter honom härska över dig. När du tar ett beslut att du ska vara hans lärjunge. Det är när du slutar med dina falska lögner och ursäkter och påhitt. Som har med liksom, vissa ibland de säger jag kunde inte sova. Och vissa säger jag har ont i foten. Är det så? Men alltså seriöst alltså. Är det här en anledning att inte kunna följa Herren? Lärjungarna blev pinade, dödade, slagna, de var martyrer och inte ens in i döden de förnekade Herren. Varför då? För att de hade den heliga ande. De lät sig uppfyllas av heliga ande och Guds kärlek. De gjorde vad? De tog ett beslut. Vad var beslutet? Att de ska vara Jesu lärjungar. Den dagen du går efter en ursäkt, då är den dagen du börjar vandra med djävulen. För att vi har ingen ursäkt. Varför då? För att Herren Jesus har redan besegrat världen, döden och djävulen. Gjorde hans lärjungar också? Japp. De har segrat i Kristus Jesus. Och alla det heliga, alla lärjungar. Vad betyder det heliga? Det är som heliga anden har helgat dem för att de ska tillhöra Gud. Det är därför när Gud säger i Gamla testamentet, det här ska ni helga åt mig. Vad betyder helga åt mig? Det där är min. Det är min. Så när du säger till Herren Jesus, jag är din, du har börjat gå ett förbund. Så bara för att det sker massa konstigheter på vägen, eller förföljelsen, eller det blir svårigheter, det kommer rädsla eller oro. Herren har redan sagt om detta och han sa, vad vid gott mot ha frid i mig, jag har besegrat världen. Så när du väljer att följa Herren Jesus Kristus, inse att du är svag och du behöver Herrens kraft. Men hur ska Herrens kraft kunna fylla dig och forma dig och hjälpa dig och leda dig om inte du väljer att fortsätta att låta dig formas och helgas och befrias? Det är därför jag vill bara säga till var och en av er som hör mig, det börjar med att du vänder om till Herren Jesus med alla dina synder och bekänner. Du tar emot hans nåd, hans kärlek, hans upprättelse. Där börjar relationen med Gud. Men för att det ska fortsätta, det räcker inte på att du går bara och döper dig. Det räcker inte på att du tillhör en kyrka. Det räcker inte att du sitter och sjunger och läser Bibeln. Det är vad du behöver göra. Du behöver be Herren att befästa dig i tro. Du behöver låta Guds heliga ande forma och förvandla dig mer och mer. För det sker inte på en dag och natt det här. Det är en process. Men det finns vissa av er som är namnkristna. Och de vill inte inse att de är namnkristna. För de skäms inte för någonting, men när det kommer till Jesus, då skäms de. Och vad sa Jesus? Den som skäms för mig är den onda släkte. Och fördärvade. Människosonen ska skämmas för dem och förneka dem inför hans fader. Så tänk efter, min vän. Herren Jesus skämdes inte att bli pinad och slagen för din och min skull. Som slakt får förs han utan att han öppnar sin mun, säger profeten Jesaja. Varför då? För dig och mig. Han gjorde allt det där för att jag och du skulle bli förlåtna, försonade med Gud, helade, upprättade och befriade och en ny skapelse och komma tillbaka till det vad Gud har skapat oss till hans avbild, att vara i relation med Gud och leva i hans kärlek, att älska Gud och älska alla andra människor och att vandra i hans ljus. Så tänk efter, min vän. Vad är det för val du har tagit i ditt liv? Även om du har tagit ett fel val och du har hamnat på en annan väg, det är inte sent att vända om. Det är inte sent att säga till Jesus, förlåt mig. Så låt dig inte bli uppäten av ångest, självfördömelse och skam. För allt detta har Kristus Jesus spikat på korset för dig och mig. Och du har ett värde och Jesus älskar dig. Och Jesus är beredd att börja på nytt med dig. Även om du har en gång i tiden varit i tro, men du har avfallit från tro. Du kan komma tillbaka och du kan vända till första kärleken. Men ni som inte har tagit emot, ni kan ta emot. Det gör du genom att be av hela ditt hjärta. Be Jesus att förlåta dig. Be honom att befria dig. Be honom att upprätta dig. Be honom att lösa dig från synden och från onda andar. Jesus har all makt, han har namnet över alla andra namn. Han har redan fullbordat allt på korset. Skriften säger, åkalla Herrens namn. Var och en som åkallar Herrens namn ska bli frälst. Och namnet över alla andra namn är Jesus Kristus. Jesus är Herren. Jesus är Gud. Jesus är skaparen. Jesus är vår mästare och vår herde och vår befriare. Vi säger inte detta bara med vår mun. Vi tror på detta av hela vårt hjärta. Och vi kommer inte vika. Vi kommer att fortsätta. För Kristus är vår ledare. Hänger ni med? Byggnaden kan inte rädda dig, kom ihåg det. Byggnaden kan inte rädda dig. Varför har vi kyrkor och byggnader? Det är på grund av troendet börjar växa. De börjar bli mer och mer. Men du ska veta en sak, att Kristi församling är hans kropp. Och om du är troende, du är en del och du är en gren i den vinstocken. Så frågan är du en bitter rot eller en rot som bär god frukt? Tänk efter. Är du en person som följer Herren och heliga anden leder dig? Eller är det din lust och begär och synd och onda andar som leder dig? Det är därför jag säger till er, om ni förtröstar er på kyrkan, men inte på huvudet av kyrkan Kristus, då är ni vilsna. För det är tack vare huvudet funkar kroppen. Men om du lämnar huvudet, hur ska kroppen funka? Hänger du med? Jag vet att det går inte att sära på de två. Men mitt råd är till dig. Du som inte har vänt om, vänd om. Vänd om och sluta bedöva ditt samvete. Vänd om för att Jesus älskar dig. Vänd om för att Jesus vill hela dig och vill förlåta dina synder. Vänd om för att Jesus har all makt. Och Jesus kommer snart. Tänk efter innan det blir sent. Jesus älskar er och han kommer snart se till att du låter den heliga ande förbereda dig till hans ankomst. Gud välsigne er. Amen.
När man ångrar sina synder och tar emot Jesus, man blir en ny skapelse, man blir frälst, man blir befriad. Och det där är någonting som är personligt. Varje person som kan fatta sina egna beslut om man vill släppa in Jesus i sitt liv och bli en ny skapelse och bli försonad med Gud eller inte. Det är därför jag frågade om du var frälst. Har du läst evangeliet? Vill du ha det? För det är gratis. Du kan få den av mig här. Om du inte har den hemma. Har du egen bibel?
Nej.
Men du tar den, du kan få en egen bibel. Men läs den.
Är det här en bibel?
Ja, det är bibel. Där har du Nya testamentet och du har ordspråksboken, hela den. Och du har hela psaltarna, psalmboken. Men innan du läser den, säg till Herren Jesus, tala till mitt hjärta. Jag vill lära känna dig, jag vill höra din röst.
Ja.
Och jag vill följa dig. Och det är då han kommer hjälpa dig. Och han kommer forma dig.
Ja.
Absolut. Gud välsigne dig. Varsågod. Har du egen bibel hemma? Har du egen bibel hemma? Du har inte det? Var kommer du ifrån? يعني عندك إنجيل تقرأيه؟ ما عندك الكله. اوكي احنا كمان نوزع العهد الجديد. اوكي انطيها واحدة من هاي. وين هاي الصغار؟ هاي الفيركانتيجا.
politikens första lag är att strunta i ekonomins första lag. Och det såg han ju på mig, så han sa, ja, vi dubblar lönen.
Hej alla dissidenter och vanligt folk. Jag heter Per Ström och är oberoende dissident. Välkommen till min kanal Nu fan räcker det, som finns på YouTube, Rumble och X. Idag återkommer Jan Blomgren till min kanal. Han är professor i tillämpad kärnfysik, debattör och författare. Det är donationer som gör den här kanalen möjlig, så om du uppskattar min opinionsbildning, överväg gärna att stödja min kanal ekonomiskt. Jan, elektrifiering har blivit ett honnörsord som alla pratar om. Men du säger att det finns en baksida med det hela som ingen nämner någonting om.
Ja, elektrifiering i sig är ju inte vare sig bra eller dåligt. Det beror ju på hur man gör det hela. Och ganska mycket av det vi har sett har varit ganska ineffektiva metoder. Och det jag har noterat är att det går åt väldigt mycket kapital. Man låser upp väldigt mycket pengar för ganska liten effekt. Låt mig ge ett exempel. Om man nu säger att vi vill driva till exempel tillverkning av vätgas med hjälp utav solceller, säger vi. Solceller levererar ström högt räknat 1/5 av tiden. Sen resten av tiden så är det natt halva dygnet och solen står väldigt lågt och ibland blir det molnigt och så. Så där någonstans ungefär ligger det. Det betyder att om du ska tillverka en viss mängd vara, till exempel vätgas eller någonting annat, med den el som kommer ut därifrån, då måste du ha 5 gånger så många elproduktionsanläggningar för att nå samma resultat jämfört med en anläggning som gav el i jämn fart dygnet runt, året runt. Det här betyder att du behöver 5 gånger så mycket pengar som du låser upp och inte kan använda till någonting annat. Och det i sin tur, det är väldigt ofta man inom politiskt beslutsfattande, för det här är ju politiskt, det är ju inte marknadsdrivet, att man glömmer bort att man kan använda pengar till något annat. En av mina favoriter här i tillvaron är den amerikanska ekonomihistorikern Thomas Sowell, som vid något tillfälle har sagt att ekonomins första lag, det är knapphet. Resurser är begränsade. Om vi låser upp resurser till någonting, då kan vi inte använda det till något annat. Politikens första lag är att strunta i ekonomins första lag. Och det kan vi se ganska många exempel på. Man säger, vi satsar alltså ett antal miljarder. Men man säger inte att det betyder att de pengarna inte kan användas till någonting annat. Men medel har alltid en alternativ användning. Om vi inte gör den här satsningen, ja då kanske vi istället skulle kunna lägga det på bättre pensioner, eller vi kunde lägga det på bättre vård. Eller vi kunde låta bli att konfiskera pengarna av medborgarna och låta dem själva avgöra vad de vill använda det hela till. Och det är oftast så att om man satsar någon annans pengar, då är man inte lika kinkig på att man får valuta för pengarna som när man satsar sina egna.
Du säger att det sätt att producera stål på som Stegra ska ägna sig åt, så kallat grönt stål, är ineffektivt. Berätta.
Ja, det har ju ändrat sig under resans gång. När konceptet lanserades, då sa man att vi ska producera stål genom att ta bort syret ur järnmalmen med hjälp av väte istället för med kol som har varit traditionella. Och det är för att de minskar koldioxidutsläpp. Men man sa också på ett tidigt stadium att det här ska göras med hjälp av el från vindkraft eller möjligen vattenkraft. Om vi tar vindkraft som exempel, det producerar ungefär 1/3 av full fart på anläggningen. Det betyder att då behöver du 3 gånger så många elproducerande anläggningar jämfört med om du hade haft någonting som hade gått på lika fart dygnet runt, året runt. Men sen dyker det också upp i nästa led, för att man har ju tänkt sig då producera vätgas. om man nu har gott om el, ska vi säga, för att göra det enkelt. Om du har mycket el en tredjedel av tiden och ingen el alls 2/3 av tiden, då måste du ha 3 vätgasfabriker istället för 1 för att få samma mängd. Därför att du måste då ha möjlighet att använda det jättemycket el under en begränsad tid. Och sen måste du ha lagring. Och det här driver ju kostnader. Det betyder att du låser upp en massa resurser som du inte hade behövt att låsa upp om det hade kommit med jämn fart. Jag kan berätta en liten historia från min ungdom. Mitt första jobb var att vara hjälprullare på ett pappersbruk. Ett synnerligen okvalificerat arbete. Jag hade jobbat i en vecka nattskift. Och tyckte det skulle vara skönt att få vara hemma och sova en natt. Och då kommer chefen och sa: hörde Blomgren, vi är lite kort om folk. Kan du ta långa söndagnatten? 12 timmar nattskift. Och jag var inte särskilt intresserad. Och det såg han ju på mig. Så han sa: vi dubblar lönen. Och jag var student på den här tiden. Det här betalade ju hyran över en månad för mitt studentrum. Det var ju ett erbjudande jag inte kunde motstå. Så fick vi driftstopp under natten. Och då satt jag mig och räknade lite grann där i kuren och insåg att lönekostnaden för alla som var i fabriken, detta 12 timmars nattskift, det var 13 minuters produktion. Ja, men det är klart de hade råd att dubbla min lön. Det var ju små pengar i sammanhanget. Därför att det som kostade var maskinerna. Och det här verkar inte våra politiska beslutsfattare insett, att de här stora satsningarna vi talat om, den stora kostnaden är maskiner. Och det betyder att då låser vi upp en massa resurser som istället kunde ha gått till någonting annat. Att ge oss bättre kommunikationer, bättre miljö, eller att låta invånarna behålla pengarna till att göra någonting klokt med dem själva.
Som sagt, om du uppskattar det jag gör så överväg gärna att stödja min kanal ekonomiskt. Då kan jag fortsätta med min opinionsbildning. Jag vill rikta ett jättetack till de vänliga människor som donerar. Ni är med i kampen för att försöka rädda Sverige. Som sagt, om du uppskattar det jag gör så överväg gärna att stödja min kanal ekonomiskt. Då kan jag fortsätta med min opinionsbildning och du stödjer kampen för att rädda Sverige. Jättetack säger jag till de vänliga människor som donerar. Ha det gott, vi ses i rutan. Kampen går vidare. Nu fan räcker det!
If you cannot remember the world you inhabit for 1/3 of your existence, it is not because your mind is broken. It is because your mind is working exactly as it was designed to. You are not forgetting. You are being wiped. There is a mechanism, a security protocol that stands between your two lives. For the purpose of this investigation, we will call it the Memory Wipe Station. And its job is to ensure that nothing from the other side follows you back here. Let us look at the mathematics of this deletion. If you live to be 60 years old, you will spend roughly 20 of those years asleep. 20 years. That is an entire lifetime. That is enough time to master a physics degree, learn 4 languages, and raise a child to adulthood. From an evolutionary standpoint, this makes absolutely no sense. Nature is ruthless with efficiency. Evolution does not tolerate waste. So why would biology construct a machine as energy expensive as the human brain, only to have it run useless simulations for 20 years and then delete the results every single morning, unless the data must be deleted? There are 2 prevailing theories in advanced neuroscience that attempt to explain this massive data purge. The first is synaptic pruning. During the day, your brain is bombarded with sensory input, traffic lights, conversations, advertisements, stress. Your neural connections grow like a chaotic jungle. If this growth continued unchecked, your brain would become so noisy, so over-connected, that you would descend into madness. You would see patterns where none exist. Enter the theory of reverse learning, proposed by Crick and Mitchison. They argue that we dream in order to forget. The brain runs parasitic modes during sleep, bizarre, nonsensical, and erroneous connections, specifically so it can identify them and destroy them. The dream is not a movie. It is the system highlighting the corrupted files. The memory wipe station is the firewall. It isolates these parasitic thoughts, the flying, the morphing faces, the impossible physics, and incinerates them so they do not bleed into your waking operating system. If the station failed, if you remembered your dreams with the same clarity as your waking life, you would lose the ability to distinguish reality from hallucination. You would remember flying off a building as clearly as you remember walking through a door. The station protects your sanity by ensuring the sandbox mode never merges with the main server. But here is the problem. If this is just about cleaning up disk space, why is the deletion so aggressive? Why is the mechanism so perfect? We understand the theoretical reason why the wipe happens to keep the waking mind stable. But theory is not mechanics. Theory does not explain the physical kill switch. To truly understand how deep this conspiracy goes, we have to look at the hardware. We have to identify the specific chemical weapon your own body releases the moment you enter REM sleep. Because once you see the biological blueprint of the wipe, you realize this isn't just about pruning connections. It is about a complete chemical blockade designed to stop the recording process at the source. The moment your eyes begin to move rapidly beneath your eyelids, your brain initiates a chemical lockdown that is unprecedented in human biology. To understand the wipe, you must understand the ink. In your waking life, your ability to form memories relies on a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine. This chemical is the save button. It signals the brain that an event is significant, stressful, or novel, and must be encoded for later retrieval. But when you enter REM sleep, the brainstem completely shuts off the supply of norepinephrine. It is the only time in the 24-hour cycle that your brain is completely devoid of this molecule. At the same time, levels of acetylcholine, the chemical responsible for focus and arousal, skyrocket. This creates a paradox. Your brain is hyper-focused, hyperactive, and processing massive amounts of data, but the save button has been physically removed from the keyboard. You are writing a masterpiece novel on a computer that has been stripped of its hard drive. But the system does not just rely on a lack of ink. It employs an active shredder. A team of researchers in Japan and the US identified a specific group of cells in the hypothalamus called melanin concentrating hormone cells, or MCH cells. For decades, we thought these cells just regulated appetite. We were wrong. We now know that MCH cells activate specifically during REM sleep, and when they turn on, they send inhibitory signals directly to the hippocampus, the brain's memory center. They are not just pausing the recording, they are actively suppressing the neural ability to encode information. Every time you dream, these cells are firing to ensure that the experience remains temporary. They are the janitors of the mind, scrubbing the floor behind you as you walk, erasing your footprints before you can even turn around to look at them. But here is the terrifying part. If the chemical blockade is so perfect, and the MCH cells are so efficient, why do fragments still get through? Why do you sometimes wake up with a name, or a face, or a feeling of dread that lingers for hours? This suggests that the memory wipe station is not just fighting biology, it is fighting something else. It is fighting a signal so strong that it bypasses the chemical bleach. To stop that signal, the brain has to do something more drastic than just changing the chemicals. It has to physically cut the phone lines. This brings us to the structural architecture of the wipe. In a waking state, your memory works like a relay team. The hippocampus is the recorder, it captures the now. The neocortex is the library, it stores the forever. For a memory to become permanent, the hippocampus must transfer the data to the neocortex. During sleep, this communication is severed. The neural oscillations, the brain waves between these two regions desynchronize. The hippocampus is screaming, playing out the most intense scenarios of your life, but the neocortex has hung up the phone. This is why dream logic feels so isolated. You are operating entirely in RAM, random access memory. RAM is fast, volatile, and wipes clean the moment the power is cut. The neocortex, your solid-state drive, remains untouched. This disconnect explains the most haunting aspect of the memory wipe, the emotional residue. Because the connection is cut, the facts of the dream, the who, what, and where cannot be saved. But the emotion of the dream is processed in the amygdala, which remains highly active and connected. This is why you wake up with a pounding heart and a sense of doom. But you cannot remember what chased you. The file was deleted, but the corruption on the system remains. You are left with the shadow of the monster, but not the monster itself. So, we have the chemicals that stop the recording, and the structural disconnect that prevents the save. Biology seems to have the answer, but this explanation has a fatal flaw. If the brain is isolated, if the inputs are cut, and the recording is off, where is the signal coming from? If you are in a sensory deprivation tank, you don't hallucinate entire cities and complex narratives for hours on end. If the brain is merely cleaning house, why does it construct worlds more detailed than reality? The biological explanation tells us how the door is locked, but it does not tell us what is behind it. To find that answer, we have to leave biology behind and enter the architecture of the simulation itself. We have to ask, if we aren't supposed to remember the dreams, is it because they aren't ours? If biology is the hardware, then we must now discuss the software. We must leave the realm of cells and enter the realm of architecture. If we accept the increasingly popular hypothesis that our reality functions like a simulation, a constructed environment governed by mathematical constants, then the memory wipe station is not a biological accident. It is a data transfer protocol. Think of your waking life as the main server. This is the public lobby where physics are rigid, actions have permanent consequences, and the code is stable. Gravity always pulls down. Fire always burns. If you die here, the game is over. Now, think of your dream state as the developer server, or a sandbox environment. In a sandbox, the physics engine is loose. You can fly. You can breathe underwater. You can talk to the dead. The code is fluid because you are testing the limits of the system without the risk of crashing the main server. The memory wipe station exists to prevent data corruption between these two servers. Imagine if you retained the full, visceral memory of flying like Superman every single night. Eventually, that memory would compete with the reality of gravity. You might stand on a rooftop in the main server, confused by the conflicting data, and take a step off. The wipe ensures that the cheat codes of the dream world do not overwrite the survival rules of the waking world. It scrubs the metadata. It allows you to keep the lessons, the fear of falling, the joy of freedom, but deletes the mechanics of how you got there. It is a protective barrier designed to keep you compliant with the physics of this reality. But if this is a secure system, who is manning the firewall? Who decides which files get deleted and which ones slip through? This brings us to the most terrifying entity in the dream world. Sigmund Freud called it the censor. He believed there was a part of your psyche that actively disguised your true desires in symbols to protect your sleep. But in the age of information, we can view the censor not as a subconscious protector, but as an algorithmic guardian. Have you ever experienced the hypnopompic state, that brief paralyzed moment between sleep and wakefulness? Millions of people report seeing the same figures: shadow people, the Hat Man, the old hag. Why do entirely different cultures, separated by thousands of miles, hallucinate the exact same entities? If dreams were just random neural noise, our hallucinations should be unique to us, but they aren't. We are seeing the same stock assets. We are seeing the guardians of the station. These entities appear exactly at the moment the wipe is occurring. They are the visual manifestation of the program that is scrubbing your drive. This is why dreams are encoded in symbols. A symbol is a compressed file, a zip file. The station takes a complex concept, like the fear of your career failing, and compresses it into a symbol, like your teeth falling out. It is easier to store, easier to wipe, and less likely to trigger a logic error in the waking mind. When you wake up, you don't remember the complex data. You only remember the compressed symbol. The station unzips the file, strips the metadata, and leaves you with a vague, confusing image that you cannot decipher. The encryption is deliberate. But every encryption has a key, and while the guardians are efficient, they are bound by the laws of physics. They cannot delete everything. There is a specific frequency, a specific vibration of the brain where the station cannot operate. And if you can tune your mind to that frequency, you can walk right past the front desk with your memories intact. Memory is state dependent. This is a known psychological phenomenon. If you learn a list of words while you are underwater, you will recall them better when you are underwater again. You cannot access files created in operating system A while you are running operating system B. When you are awake, your brain oscillates in beta waves, high frequency, alert, logical. When you dream, you are in theta waves, slow, deep, intuitive. The memory wipe station relies on this frequency mismatch. It knows that as soon as you wake up and your brain spikes into beta, the theta files become unreadable. It's like trying to play a cassette tape on a Blu-ray player. The data is there, but the format is incompatible. This explains the afternoon flash. You are walking down the street, hours after waking up, and suddenly a smell or a sound triggers a massive download of the dream you thought was lost. Why? Because for a split second, that trigger dropped your brain frequency back down into the alpha-theta border. You momentarily matched the encryption key of the deleted file. The station relies on you staying in beta. It relies on you waking up, grabbing your phone, rushing to work, and keeping your brain fast and distracted. That speed is the lock. But what happens when you refuse to speed up? What happens when a user becomes aware of the system while they are still inside it? There are people who have learned to maintain the theta state while their conscious mind comes online. They are not just recalling memories, they are actively editing the file in real time. They are the lucid dreamers, and to the station, they are not just users, they are viruses, and the system has a very specific way of dealing with them. When you become aware that you are dreaming, You are effectively logging into the developer console as an administrator. This is lucid dreaming. It is not just a cool party trick, it is a security breach. You have achieved root access while the chemical inhibitors are still active. Notice what happens the moment you become lucid. The dream often destabilizes. The environment dissolves. Or, even more chillingly, the characters in your dream stop what they are doing and stare at you. They are the white blood cells of the station. The system recognizes a foreign agent, your conscious ego intruding where it does not belong. It tries to eject you, usually by waking you up or morphing the dream into a nightmare to force a reset. This adversarial relationship proves that the dream state is not yours to control. It is a rented space, and the landlord does not like it when you change the locks. But sometimes the system fails to eject you, and it fails to delete the file. This results in the phenomenon we call déjà vu. Science tells us déjà vu is a synaptic misfire, a delay between the eye and the brain. But the station theory offers a darker explanation. You feel like you have been here before because you have been here before. You lived this exact moment in the simulation of the night. The station attempted to wipe the data, but a fragment, a corrupted file, remained on your hard drive. When the event finally plays out in the main server of reality, your brain flags a duplicate file. You are remembering the simulation of the future that you were never supposed to keep. And if we are dreaming of events before they happen, that opens a door to a terrifying possibility about the nature of time itself. If the station is wiping memories of the future, does that mean the future has already happened? This is the precognitive paradox. In physics, the block universe theory suggests that the past, present, and future exist simultaneously. If the brain is a quantum receiver, then during the theta state of sleep, it might detach from the present moment and drift forward along the timeline. You witness the car crash, the conversation, or the tragedy that awaits you next Tuesday. The memory wipe station deletes these files not to protect your sanity, but to protect the narrative. Think of them as spoilers. If you remembered exactly how your relationship ends, or exactly how you lose your job, you would alter your behavior. You would refuse to play your part in the script. The station wipes the future to maintain the illusion of free will. It forces you to walk blindly into the traps that have already been set for you. We are trapped in a loop of previewing our fate and then having the preview stolen from us. We are living our lives twice, once in the rehearsal of the night and once in the performance of the day. But we are only allowed to remember the performance. However, no security system is perfect. There are cracks in the firewall. Throughout history, prophets, inventors, and artists have claimed to retrieve massive amounts of data from their dreams, data that changed the world. They didn't just get lucky. They used a specific technique to smuggle the data past the guards. They found a way to trick the station into thinking the file was safe, allowing them to carry forbidden knowledge from the night into the day. There is a method to bypass the wipe. It requires discipline, it requires timing, and it requires you to override your most basic biological instincts. The moment you open your eyes, the memory wipe station has a physical trigger. It is rigged to a motion sensor. The moment you move a muscle, the moment you reach for your phone, turn your head, or even stretch your legs, you engage the motor cortex. In the hierarchy of the brain, survival movement takes precedence over data retention. The instant the motor cortex fires, the delicate, short-term electrical patterns of the dream are overwritten by the heavy, high-voltage signal of physical action. You literally move the memory out of existence. To smuggle the data past the firewall, you must master the art of physical paralysis. When you wake up, you must remain a statue. Do not open your eyes fully. Do not shift your weight. By keeping the body frozen, you trick the station into thinking you are still asleep. You keep the theta waves running just long enough to perform a file transfer. But you cannot transfer the whole file at once. The bandwidth is too narrow. If you try to remember the plot of the dream, you will fail. The plot is too heavy. Instead, you need an anchor. An anchor is a single vivid sensory fragment. A red door, the smell of rain, the texture of a dog's fur. Do not ask what happened. Ask, what did I just see? Grab that one image and hold it. Do not let go. By focusing on the anchor, you pull the thread. The brain is associative. The red door is linked to the house. The house is linked to the conversation, and the conversation is linked to the feeling. By holding the anchor, you force the neocortex to download the rest of the file around it. You are rebuilding the deleted scene from a single frame. Timing is your final weapon. You cannot catch a dream if you are waking up from deep delta wave sleep. That is like trying to catch a radio signal from the bottom of the ocean. You must time your wake up to the end of a 90-minute ultradian rhythm. This is when the brain is naturally surfacing from REM. If you use a jarring alarm clock, you trigger a cortisol spike, a stress response that nukes the memory instantly. You need a slow, gentle return to consciousness. You need to sneak up on the waking world, not crash into it. If you execute this protocol stillness, the anchor, and timing, you will begin to notice a breach in the system. The wall between your two lives will thin. You will remember not just the images, but the other you. The version of you that exists in the night, the version that is brave where you are cowardly, or cruel where you are kind. But this brings us to the final, and perhaps most dangerous question of this investigation. We have spent 30 minutes treating the memory wipe station as a villain, a suppressor of truth. But what if we are wrong? What if the station is not a prison guard, but a guardian angel? What if the wipe is the only thing keeping you alive? Imagine, for a moment, that the station shuts down. Imagine you remember everything. Every night, you live a full 24-hour cycle in a dream. You fall in love. You build a house. You fight a war. You die. And then you wake up. How long until the weight of those thousands of lifetimes crushes the single, fragile narrative of your waking life? How can you go to your office job when you vividly remember leading a revolution the night before? How can you look at your spouse with love when you vividly remember them betraying you in a simulation that felt just as real as this morning's breakfast? The human mind is not built for infinite data. It is built for a single linear story. We call it sanity. The memory wipe station is a mercy. It takes the chaos of the multiverse, the trauma of the simulation, and the impossible physics of the void, and it washes them away. It gives you the gift of a fresh start. Every single morning, it allows you to be you instead of the 1,000 other things you were in the dark. So, tonight, when you close your eyes, you will go on a journey. You will see wonders and terrors that would shatter your waking mind. You will live a life that is completely real. And then, the station will do its job. It will take that life, and it will gently, quietly delete it. And when you wake up, with that vague sense of loss, that fleeting shadow of a memory, let it go. Some doors are locked for a reason. Good night.
You are listening to 24/7 online radio.
Let it drop like that. Let it drop like that. Come on and get there.